Facebook as well. Besties and bosses, hello, happy Tuesday. How are you all? I have Instagram with us as well. So I was telling Instagram, so I'm a little late because I was working on the tech here. Usually we're right on time. But I used to back in the day at the start of my business, gosh, probably 4 or 5 years ago, I would live stream on Instagram and in the Facebook group. Many of you probably don't know this, but Instagram was my first love. I started with Instagram and then moved to Facebook. I haven't done that forever because I always want to keep the container in the Facebook group really safe for the topics we talk about. But I thought I would test it again because I've heard from some of my clients and some people that, they like watching stuff on Instagram. They prefer it there. So we're going to see how this works. Definitely got the tech thing. We're going to have to try to figure out and toggle back and forth. So let me know how you like both. If you prefer them, we'll keep them going. If it feels distracting watching me do both, then we'll keep it in the Facebook group. I will probably keep my focus mostly to the Facebook group. Instagram, I love you, but we use the replay for the Facebook group video for my website as well. It's for you to get on my email or through the email if you're on my email list. So I got to try to kind of give that preference, but I will make sure I check for comments here as well and all of those things. So today, Instagram, Facebook, what we are talking about is messaging, 3 easy messaging lessons for words that help you connect and sell more. And I realize here, gosh, there's so many things on Instagram, tech things. There's probably a way I can put a title, but we'll do that. We'll do that next time for the IG people. As I'm talking through this, hey Alexandra, nice to have you. Oh yay, this is so fun. We've got all sorts of fun people on both Instagram and on the Facebook. Alexandra, you're gonna have to tell me, do I look teeny tiny funny from the Zoom stream? I think I have it set up properly, but let me know if you have a weird view. We're going to talk messaging. I really want to apply this from the Clarity Mindset Strategy Action perspective. That is my coaching framework. Next week, I am going to share a fifth tenet to my coaching framework that I want to share with you all. But today we're going to look through that lens because let me know if you're watching now, if you're watching on the replay, how you feel about messaging. I find this is something that gets people so tripped up in business. I literally remember my first year in business, and I promise we will get into the 3 things I want to share here. I remember my first year in business, how confusing messaging was to me. And I was like watching all the things, all the trainings, trying to learn the right way to do it. I probably spent so much money trying to figure out my messaging. And then I would feel so insecure when I would meet someone. They're like, tell me what you do. Like, I would almost fumble over my words, and I would feel so frustrated because I knew I was great at what I do. I know I'm an excellent coach. I've always been an excellent coach, but having the words to put around what I did and being able to articulate that to someone, especially when they put me on the spot, felt like that kind of thing, when your cheeks start feeling flush and you're like, oh, that's how I would feel. And I literally remember having a connection call with someone who had reached out to me, I think because they wanted to sell me something, and them asking me that, and they were kind of putting me on the spot and telling me that my messaging or whatever they thought about it. I just remember wanting to crawl under my computer because I felt so silly about it. So I don't want you to feel that way about your messaging. I want to give you some easy ways to think about your messaging, but I also want to remove some of the pressure around it. So that's what we'll talk about a little bit from the mindset component, because yes, your message is important. Absolutely. It speaks to, who you work with, the problem you solve, the results you deliver, but we also don't want to give any part of our business so much power that it makes us want to crawl under a table, or it makes us not feel great about the work we do. I also realized, oh my gosh, make a difference, y'all. I'm all over the place today, but I have a new camera for the computer. Anybody else do this where you leave the sticker on something and then you realize that you have it over the screen? So it'll probably work a lot better for us now in the Facebook group. Let me know if this is resonating with you. Alexandra says, no, the view is good. It's your background that looks larger than your usual lives, but it still looks good. Thank you for the feedback. I think you're right. I think there's something about this camera that opens the view up. So we'll have to see if we can play with that, but you can see my loft apartment here. Instagram, let me know if you are following, and if you have questions as we're going through this, I will keep toggling back, and then Facebook always now on the replay if you have questions, and let me know how you feel about messaging. So again, I'm going to go through this from the Clarity Mindset Strategy Action perspective, and we will talk about the hack. I don't love the term hack, but we're using that in terms of how to have your messaging really speak to people in a way where they understand why they should give you their money. So I find one of the biggest challenges with messaging is what happened to me at the start of business, right? We wrap so much around it, and we almost spend so much time on it that we kind of lose the point and the purpose of your message. And we get confused as to why it's even something we want to focus on and where it belongs in our strategy. And we can get really flowery with our words and really creative, and we can get really wrapped around it, but miss speaking to the very pieces of your message that connect with your audience and that help your audience understand, help your people understand why you specifically are the person that they should hire, that they should give money to, how you can specifically help them. And so what I find happens so often with messaging is when we're in that phase and like, hi, this was me, like no shame in that game. I think this is a bit of a confusing thing. It's literally what I help clients with all the time. But I find what can happen so often is we confuse our mission and our why and why we do our work and why we started our business in the first place with our message. And while there is absolutely an overlap, there is a little bit of nuance between the two. And there are some pieces to your message that are really important to speak to. And there are some places in terms of the strategy and action side of things that I find we want to put our message that sometimes people forget to kind of take their message the whole way through and put them in those places. Hey, Belinda. Oh, Instagram's fun. It tells me who's live. Say hi if you want to, and if you have questions around this. I'm so happy to see you all. This is fun. I don't know. I know this is not for me, and this is very much for you, but I have to say, doing the both is making me very happy right now. So, what I thought would be helpful when it comes to kind of understanding, okay, so what are those pieces? If I'm confusing mission with my message, what are those pieces I need to think about? What do I really want to make sure to include in my message? What is that hack, so to say? One of the ways I find is really helpful to understand the difference, and a way I think about it that I find just really helps my brain wrap around it is a way Jim Collins speaks about this. So I don't know if anyone has read the book Good to Great. If you haven't, it is an excellent book. I really appreciate it. Again, it's by Jim Collins, and without going too far into the book, what he did is, this is all research based. They studied companies that literally went from good to great in terms of their income over, I think it was like a 10-year span, and really looked at the difference between companies who essentially scaled and grew exponentially over that time frame and for companies that did not, or kind of went on a decline over that time frame, and looked at what some of those common denominators were. And there's a lot in this book, so that's not the whole point here, but what I found really helpful as it relates to your messaging is what Jim Collins talks about in terms of focus with your offer and your business. He really looks at it through three lenses. What could you be the best in the world at? What are you really passionate about? And what will people pay you for? And really, it's that intersection of what could you be the best in the world at? What are you so passionate about? And what will people pay you for? It's that intersection really that drives our business. That's where we want to center our offers around. That's also what we want to center our message around. And what I find happens for a lot of us, because we're passion driven, because we love our work, because we are heart centered, because we're service based, because we didn't just start a business to make money, but if you're here, you started a business because you love your work. And that's why you want to make money. You want to make money on your terms, right? We get really wrapped around one spoke of that kind of, we think about this as a Venn diagram. We get wrapped around the what are you so passionate about piece, right? That's more the mission. And that's where I find so often we wrap our messaging around. What are you so passionate about? Which that is beautiful, right? We want you to have a passion-driven business. We want you to make money on your terms. All of that is absolutely true. And what happens when your message is centered only around what are you passionate about, you're missing those two other huge components that we really want to have in the Venn diagram. It becomes very you-focused and very you-centric. And business, quite frankly, isn't really about you or me. It's really about the people we serve. And it's really about the problems we solve and the desires we help people meet. And when it comes to what will people pay for, unfortunately, fortunately, however we want to think about it, most people aren't throwing money around on the internet because of what you and I are passionate about, right? Most of us spend our money, put it down our credit card because we want our problem solved, because we want support around something, because we have a pain point, a need, a challenge, because there's something we really deeply desire. And that's what we pay our money around for. Let me know if this is resonating and making sense. And so if we're not including those parts of the Venn diagram in our message, we're missing a huge part that's going to connect with our people. And again, this is just, it's not that if you're just wrapped around the passion part, you're doing it wrong. It just means there might be a part of your message that isn't going to connect with your audience as well. They're going to have a harder time seeing why should they pay you? What's in it for them, right? Because all it's going to be wrapped around, if it's around your mission and your passion, is you as opposed to what's in it for your people. So what I find can be really helpful is really taking a look at that intersection, borrowing from Jim Collins and really looking at, yes, what are you so passionate about? What would you do for free? What do you love to do? What is your zone of genius is really the way I think about it. What could you be the best in the world at? And we talked about this on one of the podcast episodes. I'll have to see if I can link back to it afterwards. What's really important here is what could you be the best in the world at is not saying, what are you the best in the world at? You don't need to wait till you're the best in the world. Lots of people can be the best at something, but what could you be the best in the world at? Which really speaks to your zone of genius as well as that passion piece there. Hey, nice to see you. We're trying live on Instagram and Facebook today to see how that goes. I haven't done that in a while. So looking at what could you be the best in the world at? Again, that does not mean what are you the best in the world at? What could you be the best in the world at? And then that other piece of the Venn diagram that gets so often missed is, and what would people pay you for? So I'm going to give some insight there because that piece right there, what will people pay you for? That's the part of messaging I find so often gets missed out. And what we really want, again, is where that Venn diagram overlaps, that's really going to be the heart and soul of your message. But that piece of what would people pay you for? What will people pay you for? That's the part, that's the hack, so to say. That's the part that is going to connect with your audience and help them understand why they should pay attention, why they should listen, why they should lean in specifically to you and your work. Otherwise, even if you're speaking to what you could be the best in the world at, and that passion piece there, frankly, again, with all the love in the world, no one cares. No one gives a fuck, right? Unless they understand, why should I give you my hard-earned money? So let's break down why, because I think that's the piece there that can be so compelling. Why do people pay for things? Alexander says it resonates. Thank you for your feedback. So why do people pay for things? If you think about this, like just take a moment and think through some of the last things you spent money on. Of course, we have our human basic needs, right? Maslow's hierarchy of needs. All of us pay for things to meet those basic human needs. I think that goes across the board. And then most of us in business here, if you're hanging with me, most of you are not selling things that just meet the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that bottom part of the triangle, right? Most of us are moving up that triangle and we're selling things that are going to be services or products that serve people higher up the triangle after, food, shelter, I'm trying to think, safety, like the bottom piece there. So those are absolutely reasons people spend money. So it is helpful, a little human psychology there. I think it's really helpful. You can just Google Maslow's hierarchy of needs to see, where do you fall on that? Because that will help you understand why do people spend money on things. Once we're kind of past that, the basic core human needs that keep us safe, food, shelter, all of those things, most of us, you and me, most of us are in business as service providers of some way, shape, or form. And we're generally speaking, selling things to people, and people are giving us money for one of two core reasons. And these are just psychological human drivers. And that's to avoid pain and seek pleasure. Right? If we think about what drives us as humans, we're so complex, and then we're also so basic. We're kind of both there. And so if we think about the more basic side of being a human, we are really driven and wired for survival, right? The bottom part of that triangle there, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And then we're really driven to avoid pain and seek pleasure. And that is why we do most of the things we do. And there's nuance to that, obviously. This is also why most of us buy things. And so if we think, why would someone pay for something? This is why we're always looking at what are people's pain points and challenges, and what are people's desires? What are the results? What I think about with messaging is we really want to get into the mind of our people, and we want to think, what is the pain they're trying to avoid? What's the problem you solve? What's the challenge you help someone overcome? What is that pain they are trying to run away from on that continuum? And then what's the desire they're seeking, which generally speaking is what's the result or benefit of what you offer that people want. If you can start to tap into that, that is going to light your message on fire. And I think, again, I call this a hack, but I think it's just human psychology. And it really helps us understand why someone would pay money. It tends to be for those core basic drivers there. Those are kind of the levers you can think about. And again, what I find happens so often with messaging, we all do this, I did this too, is we tend to almost forget about the fact that, people are driven to get those core basic needs met and then to avoid pain, seek pleasure. And most of us look at, well, this is what I'm passionate about. This is my zone of genius. Let me put that in my messaging. And if we think about avoid pain, seek pleasure, none of our passion, none of our zone of genius really fits into that continuum unless we also include that pain challenge point and that benefit result piece. And so I think that's just to give some nuance and understanding there as to why this is such a hack for messaging. And the part of the Venn diagram we really want to focus on, that I find so many people almost forget about at the expense of the other part. I'd say really this is, if you talk about nothing else, this is the driver that helps people understand why should they give you money. What I'm going to break this into one other piece here that I find can be helpful from this component. This actually comes from, I love the way Seth Godin talks about this. And then I actually pulled up a list. I share this with my clients quite a bit as to just some of the drivers, just some of the common reasons people spend money, just so you can look through your message and think, okay, which one is this for my people in terms of the benefits, results, or the pain challenge point that you're helping people solve. And just have to toggle back here with like Zoom, Facebook. I don't get the messages up the same way, but this seems to be, I don't think Zoom will show me, so just making sure if you have questions, throw them at me. I really want to make sure this is a workshop for all of you and that this supports you. So question, anything you want clarity on, please throw it at me. So with the messaging piece here, and what I'm going to do after we go through this, I'll give you some really simple frameworks for how to plug in your messaging. And then we'll look at the strategy action piece in terms of what to do with your message once you have this all in place. But the way I like to think about this, and the way I will, when I'm coaching clients through this, and we're really drilling into their messaging and we're looking at how they're going to speak to their work, and we're looking at that Venn diagram in terms of what would people pay you for part. What I really like to think about and what I'm looking for, and the way I know we've kind of hit on that thing, is really thinking about this through the lens of the way Seth Godin talks about this, which is, people aren't just buying the thing you're selling. They're really buying the benefit that it will give them. They are buying a potential. They are buying, yes, a solution to a problem, but they're really buying that result. That is what, when we are looking past those basic needs, what makes us feel good about spending money. Many of you know I'm getting married in less than 2 weeks. It's so soon. When I'm buying things for, let's say, what did I just get? I got a pretty face mask to go with my wedding dress, right? I'm not just buying a face mask. I'm buying what I think that face mask is going to do for me, how it's going to make me feel, right? I'm buying that it's going to match my outfit. It's going to make me feel beautiful on my wedding day. It's going to make me feel more confident. It's going to protect my health. It is going to look great in photos. I don't know if those are the real reasons, but right, I'm not just buying it because it is a mask that covers my face. I'm not just buying that because it's COVID and this is a requirement. I'm not just buying it because this mask in particular, and I didn't spend extra money on this just because it is going to help protect other people from me in terms of being a responsible human, right? I bought that mask to match my wedding dress because of those ways it would make me feel, because of those extended benefits. And what Seth Godin talks about when he talks about this is he uses the example of a drill. I think this is one of the most common examples in marketing, right? People don't just buy a drill. If they go out and buy a drill, yes, they're buying a drill. But if you're marketing a drill, right, you can just market, this is a drill, it makes holes in the wall. But if you really want to look at messaging and you really want to look at why is someone buying this drill over another drill, especially if it's a really fancy high price drill, people are buying what the drill will do for them. They're buying, yes, the hole in the wall. I think this is, what is Seth Godin's book on marketing? Why can't I think of the name of it? I'll just drop it in the comments here. The name is eluding me. But he talks about how they're not just buying the hole in the wall or the drill or the hole in the wall. They're buying the fact that that drill is going to put the hole in the wall, that they can put a shelf in their room, right? Like if I was going to put a shelf here, I'm buying that I'm going to have organization in my closet. I'm buying, or in my office, I'm buying that that drill is going to help me put a picture up there and bring me maybe my wedding photo, right? And bring me a beautiful memory. I'm buying that that drill is going to help me pull my home together and make it feel really cozy and beautiful. These are all benefits that are way further than just the simple action of that drill, the fact that it can make a hole in the wall, right? Similarly to, I bought that face mask and spent, whatever money on it. That's not a basic human need. I didn't buy that just simply because I need it. I bought it because of the way it's going to make me feel and those extra benefits that I perceived from it. And that's the thing, the hack I really want to invite you to start thinking about with your messaging is thinking about, yes, what are you so great at? What could you be the best in the world at? What are you so passionate about? But also, why would people give you money? And the reason people give you money is, yes, to solve a problem or a pain point, but also to move towards that desire, that result, that benefit, and to really think about this through the lens for them, not what you're so excited about, which is your passion and what you're so great at, but through the, okay, if they buy my drill, what does that let them do? And then what? And then what? And then what? The more you can keep asking, what's possible then? What's possible then? What's the benefit then? The more you're going to drill into, now we're using the word drill in a completely different way, the more you're going to be able to tap into the words that are really going to help connect your audience and help them understand why your service is really the thing for them that they should spend money on. The more you're going to tap into those emotions and those things they really want past the mask itself or the drill itself. So I pulled up I'm just seeing if we have questions. Alexander says, I love how you mentioned the extended benefits, not just the obvious benefits. Mary says, yes, congrats. Thank you. And Alexander says, congrats on your soon marriage. Thank you all so much. We've been together for almost 7 years. So it is, I feel we're actually wearing our wedding rings already because we're calling them friendship rings until we're married. So thank you. But we've been together for a very long time. So it feels in many ways, like we're already married. And I'm also so looking forward to the ceremony of it and, getting to say those vows and, very much thank you for your kind wishes. And yes, to what you're saying, Alexander, I think that's really the piece. And that's the hack with messaging. And really when I'm working with clients around this, that's the thing we're pulling out and that I'm like really wanting to draw out of them. And the reason I bring this here is I keep saying this, but it feels so important, is it is just so easy for us because we're so close to our work and because we love what we do to forget this piece and just to keep going back to the other two parts of the Venn diagram, which is what we're passionate about and what we, our zone of genius, and to stay over there instead of this piece here. This is really what speaks to your people. This is what helps people understand why they should spend their money, why they should drop down their credit card or, invest through your work. And so, thank you for the hearts. Y'all making me so happy. So I pulled up this list that I've accumulated over some time that I often share with clients of just some of the most common reasons people buy. And so I'm just going to share them with you. These are sort of the just core human drivers when we're talking about avoiding pain, seeking pleasure, just so you can start to think whatever it is you sell. Maybe you're a health coach, maybe you're an OBM, maybe you are a hairdresser. You might sell all sorts of different services here. I know most likely if you're here, you sell a service of some kind, but just think through whatever that is to go past the basic result, right? If I get my hair cut, and the basic result would be I get my hair cut. I just got my hair cut, right? But to look past that and see what is the benefit after getting your hair cut? What's the benefit after the benefit? In coaching, we talk about what's the thing under the thing. Here, what's the benefit past the benefit? And see which of some of these here, because these are really tapping into some of those core human drivers on the pain and pleasure side. See which one might tie into what it is that you offer, that you sell. So making money is a really common one. Making money, saving money. Which is still about money, but that's different than making money. Saving time or I call it making time, but saving time, maximizing time. That's a really common driver. I mean, think about for any of you who Amazon Prime is such a great example. For those of you who pay for Amazon Prime, why do you pay for Amazon Prime? Probably one of the reasons is it saves you some time. maximizes your time. For those of you who, some of my clients, I know one of the first team members that they hire is someone support to get, cleaning in their house or groceries delivered, right? Why would we do that? Why would we spend money and pay someone to do that? That is to save time. That's to maximize time. And so we might think, oh, it's just grocery delivery, right? If we're thinking about what could be the best in the world, like it's so easy just to get wrapped around like the groceries and the broccoli and the milk that gets delivered, and just to get wrapped around that instead of really peeling that back into how is this helping people avoid pain, and how is this helping people get that desire, that benefit under the benefit. Saving time is probably a big one. That is why I order grocery delivery. That's absolutely one of the reasons. Here's another one. One of the reasons I do that is big driver is to have better health or to improve your health. I live in New York City. We are on top of each other here. We're in an epicenter. We were in an epicenter for COVID. One of the reasons we started ordering groceries, quite honestly, I kind of like grocery shopping. Me and my man like to do it together. I don't know, it's kind of a dorky fun thing for me. So it wasn't just to save time, though that is definitely a reason. One of the drivers for us was this is a way that we can minimize adding, our footprint out in the world when we're trying to be conscious of, it's a lot more open now here in the city, but we were really trying to be conscious, especially at the start of COVID when we started ordering groceries. So that is another big driver. Let's see here. Avoiding pain challenges. We talked about that one already. So I think that one's pretty obvious there. Avoiding less work. So that would be, I think that's, if you're a done for you service provider, right? That's a huge one there. That's a saving time. That's also just avoiding work or avoiding struggle or avoiding effort. It's a huge pain point, challenge point. That's also a huge driver. If you can help someone avoid a challenge or a struggle, and if you can really look at the benefit under the benefit, like if they have to do less work and if they have to avoid that struggle, how does that benefit? What's the benefit under the benefit there? Hey, we're doing a live all about messaging. I realized I didn't know how to put a title on Instagram, so we'll figure out the tech on that next week if we do this again. Let's see here. I'm just looking at my list because I wanted to read these. Avoid mental pain and struggle. So I think that could be mental pain and struggle can come up in a lot of different ways, but I think that's a really big driver for people. Gain comfort and ease. So this, like if we think about, I think the grocery delivery is a great example. For me, that might have been tied into health. For someone else, this is why knowing your people and your audience is so important. What drives them? What is the benefit for your people, not the benefit for everyone? For someone else, that might just be a really easeful thing. It gives them a lot more comfort in their life to get grocery delivery. And this is why I think it's so helpful to get support around this, or to, yes, you want to know your people, but also to talk through this with someone, if you work with a coach or if you have a friend, because you might do the same thing as someone else, but your message might be very different because what your people specifically want as a benefit and a result, the pain they're avoiding, the challenge, the problem you solve, and the benefit they want, the benefit under the benefit, might look very different, even though the service is the same. And I think that can be really helpful because that's how your message lands with people more. Hopefully that makes sense. I can give another example there. Let me think of another. We use health coaching as an example, right? So health coaching, for depending on your audience, for one person, that might be around something like having better health, right? Literally like someone who wants to improve their condition of their immune system, and COVID is such a great example, right? And they might get support around that. For someone else, it might be so the next one here is to feel loved and accepted, right? They might not love and accept their body. Someone else might hire a food coach or a health coach because they really want to work on that self-love, or this is a way to show themselves self-love or to really accept their body. So I think just seeing same service, right? Really different drivers for someone to hand over a credit card or to invest. And that's why this is so helpful to get clear on, because otherwise we just start pulling things out of a hat. And it's like, we've got a message that feels like a really weird, gross salad instead of, or like a kitchen sink full of a bunch of, random things, instead of what really is going to speak to your people, which is, again, which is helpful to really get clear on what could you be the best in the world at? What are you passionate about? But also, what will people pay you for? What is their problem? What's that problem you solve? What is that challenge are people having? What do they really deeply desire? What is the benefit under the benefit for them? A couple other ones here. We say gain approval, feel love and accepted, feel joy and happiness. I know people say that happiness and joy does not sell. I think sometimes it can be a little vague. And so we have to be mindful in messaging just to speak to like, I want to help you have your best life. I think that can be, I think specifics are always really powerful with your messaging, but people absolutely pay for that. Increase their popularity, their social status. A lot of people buy things for social status. And then entertainment. I think entertainment is absolutely a driver for people to spend money. So hopefully that helps you just in terms of what are some of those drivers, because I think you can get clear on that piece of your message. That is going to exponentially help people understand how you specifically can support them, why they should give you specifically money. It's really going to help you tap into those words that are going to connect with your people. All right, just seeing here on the comments, because I got to toggle back and forth. Mary said, I just started on Instagram. It gives you the option to put a title when you share to IGTV after go live. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mary. It has been so long since I've done Instagram Live and Facebook at the same time. So I feel like everything has changed. I have all these like new options on the side that didn't exist before. It's very, very fun to have both. Thank you for those of you who are joining. We're going live. If you are catching up now on Instagram and on Facebook, we are talking all about messaging and 3 easy ways to improve your messaging. So you really can tap into those words that are going to connect with your audience and your people. And I appreciate all the tech help. That is not my zone of genius. That is not why people should hire me. That is not a part of my message. So there's a really good example there of what I would not include in my messaging. So that's some of the really practical piece around the clarity and the strategy for your messaging. And I find if you can get clear on that piece, that is the piece so often that could just use a little more love in your messaging. What I find then is we want to look at them. What are you doing with your message? I will give you just a cheat sheet on the I help statement. What I am mindful here of is, and what I find happens so often is it's really easy to think and to get wrapped around crafting the perfect I help statement and thinking that is like your messaging for your business. And frankly, I rarely use my I help statement. It's really helpful to have. I use it if I'm writing a bio or if I'm going on a podcast and someone needs my bio, I absolutely need to share that. If I'm having another awkward coffee connection call, like I mentioned at the start of my business where I wanted to crawl under my table, maybe I would use it then. It's probably in the bio for Instagram. If you go to my website, like there are absolutely places that exists. But outside of that, I rarely am walking around using my I help statement. I will give you again, a really like easy cheat sheet to plug that in. But what I really want to invite you here, if you're watching and just let me know if you have questions on Instagram as well. What I really want to invite you to think about here is taking your message past your I help statement and taking it past just putting it in those places on your website or on your bio, and really thinking about your message as being the core, of being the nucleus of so much of what drives your business. Again, if we think about the Jim Collins Venn diagram from good to great, of that, what could you be the best in the world at? What are you really passionate about? That, what's your zone of genius? And then what will people pay you for? That interlocking piece there that's going to inform your message, that's going to inform your offer. This really is driving the ship, driving the direction. It is the North Star of your business. And so what I want to invite you to think about again is taking this past and I help statement and really seeing the way your message serves your business is letting this become a living, breathing thing that is not just about having some perfectly curated sentence that frankly, no one talks like that in real life anyway. And letting this be what informs your offers, what informs your content, what you talk about all the time. Because that is what's going to help your message actually serve your audience and serve your work and help you actually get paid. And hey, everyone on, so fun on Instagram to have new faces, so welcome. So I will share that I help statement to some frameworks because they are helpful to have. But again, if you're watching now on the replay, don't let this become a place to get super wrapped around the axle of perfectionism. Have that statement, absolutely use it. But then we're going to talk about let this be a living, breathing entity, and I'll share a little bit more about that. But the I help statement, I think a really easy way to think of this is, and this is like usually what people think about in terms of messaging, and your message is I help, and then what's the type of person? This is your ideal client. Who do you help, right? I help really smart business owners. I help heart-centered, passion-driven, smart business owners who are high achieving, whatever that might be. Who are the people you help? You probably help people that are very different than me. then generally speaking, we put the problem that you solve. So earlier we were talking about that pain point, right? The problem, the challenge you help people with. What is that problem you solve? So I help the type of person, the problem that you solve. And then so that they can, that is the magical copy sentence, right? So that they can, what is that result? And what I would offer here, we were talking about what's the benefit under the benefit. I would speak to the result. I generally like to speak to more than one result there, so you can really, tie into that. But what is that big picture result? Again, what is the result that people will pay you for? That's what we're talking about there, not the result tied to your passion or your zone of genius that you are so excited about. Think about the Venn diagram. What you want to think about there is really what is the result people will pay you for. So that is the general framework. You can make this longer, you can make it shorter. If you just want to say, I help people result, that is a message. I help people problem result, that can be that can be a framework. So you can have a couple different frameworks. And I realize as I'm saying this, I wish I had like a whiteboard here because it'd probably be easier to see this written out. But that is the general way you structure that. If anyone wants me to later on, we can always type that into the chat box. And hey, those of you who are on Instagram, nice to have you here. So just seeing, no comments there. So hopefully that framework makes complete sense. And again, this feels so important to say because people get so locked around this permission to have variations. I think sometimes it almost feels like, okay, I've crafted this and now it has to be perfect. And now I have to like speak like a robot, and permission to have variations, permission to use this like a human being that you are. What I often, when I'm working with clients on their message, often what I'll have them do is then rewrite their message in a way that if they were going to meet someone at a coffee shop pre-COVID, or if they were going to meet someone at the gym, in the way that they would say this if they were just talking to someone. And what I find, usually if we're just meeting someone for the first time, they're like, what do you do? And they want to know your message, right? We're not like, I wouldn't, like, if I just met you at the gym, I wouldn't say, hi, my name is Kim Argetsinger. I'm a mindset coach and business mentor. And I work with really smart, high achieving, heart-centered, passion-driven entrepreneurs. And I help them get out of their own way. I help them with their clarity, mindset, strategy, and action. I help them with their messaging, their marketing, and their sales so that they can build, grow, and scale profitable businesses they're wildly in love with on their terms, right? You'd be like, what did you just say, woman? You would already like be over to the other part of the gym, right? I'd probably be like, hey, oh, what do you do? I would say, I probably would say something like, I'm a mindset coach or a mindset and business coach, and I help service-based business owners make money on their terms online. And if someone's like, oh, how? I'd probably extrapolate a little bit more. So I say that to you because, again, the most important part of your message is not your message. It's what you do with your message. It's going out and sharing your message and putting it into the world. It's taking this and letting it be a living, breathing entity and a part of you, and finding lots of different ways to talk about it and infusing it into everything you talk about, infusing it into your content, infusing it into your conversations, right? And letting it really be the nucleus of what you do and what you talk about. And so I would really invite you, as you're playing with this, and we talked about those pieces with your messaging, like play with those different pieces there. What are the problem you solve? What is your zone of genius in your way of doing that work? What are those results? Find different ways to play with that so that, in different situations, you can talk about this in a way that you feel good about, you feel human about, instead of feeling like you have to have some memorized sentence. And then if you don't say it perfectly, that you like screwed things up. That's just not the way things go. Oh, hey, I see other Instagram. This is fun. Instagram. You have to tell me. Do you want me to keep doing lives on Instagram and on Facebook? Are you liking the joint? Facebook, how are you are you liking the energy of both? Because I'm gonna let you all be part of my decision making around this. Okay, so that is the really big piece there. What I would say in thinking of your message and really thinking of that as the core of your strategy and as the core of the nucleus, right, of your business. Again, let this be living and breathing. Something that's I have just found to be so true is your message will evolve as you and your business do. My message is not the same that it was at the start of my business. My work has evolved, even though I think it was about a year and a half in that I went from general life coaching to business coaching, even though my work and my coaching framework has pretty much been clarity, mindset, strategy, and action from day one. And even though that's been true, my message has definitely evolved because my work has evolved, and it continues to get more nuance and more pieces to it. And the other piece I will really offer here that feels so important is allowing yourself to infuse what feels important to you in your message, But remembering when you do. So something I talk a lot about, for example, here is taking up space with your work. But that is a big part of my message. I always want to bring that piece back to, and what will people pay me for, which is the build, grow, and scale a profitable business on their terms piece. So if I'm talking about taking up space and I'm infusing that, like this is a living, breathing thing. It's now a part of my work. And that's something I talk about a lot. I always want to remember that Venn diagram we talked about and bring it back to, I cannot forget about what do people pay you for? What are people willing to pay you for? What is the benefit under the benefit? So if I'm talking about taking up space, right, it's not just taking up space and then running with that. Like, I got so excited. This is something I want to talk about. Let me run at this in my messaging. It's taking up space and remembering that Venn diagram and thinking, right, but what's the benefit under the benefit? What's the thing people will pay me for? How can I make sure I'm taking up space and tying that to how important that is in terms of making money on your terms or building, growing, and scaling a profitable business. Does that make sense? So permission for your message to evolve, permission for new things to come into your message, permission for this to be living and breathing and to grow and to expand. But what I would invite you to keep coming back to is what we talked about at the beginning of this conversation, is to keep coming back to, what do people pay me for? What are they willing to pay me for? What is that benefit under the benefit? What can I speak to there so that this is still really coherent? And that part probably won't change that much. So while the nuances, how I help people build, grow, scale profitable businesses, right? While some of those nuances might change in my messaging and that might evolve, and that's something I want to talk to all the time, that core piece there, making money on your terms, making money doing what you love, right? The build, growing, and scaling a profitable business on your terms, that part there, what people are paying me for, it doesn't change all that much. And I've heard this said, I think this is my coach, so shout out to Lacey Seitz. I think this was, pretty sure I'm giving credit in the right place. She talks a lot about, how does she say it? Kind of like boring results and then interesting process. That's what we're talking about really here. Allow that, the benefit under the benefit, the reason people pay you in your message, allow that piece to be pretty static and boring, and don't make that wrong, right? We went through that list of like the general reasons people pay for things. Those are pretty common core human needs. This is not the place to get innovative or to reinvent the wheel. This is the place to see, this is just human. This is what drives people and compels people to pay for things and to invest in things. Let that be basic, and then fill in the rest of your message. Let that be the living, breathing entity that you infuse with the other part of that Venn diagram, your zone of genius and what you're so passionate about. Hopefully that is making sense. Mary says, makes sense. Sure. Alexandra says, this is great. Thank you. I love you both so much. Thank you it's very helpful because you don't always know when you're sharing this kind of stuff, what lands with people or not. So I really appreciate the feedback and hearing that and having you here. So again, let that end piece there be really simple. That's probably not going to change and morph that much unless you're pivoting your business, but then infuse the rest. Feel free to infuse the rest. And what I would say here, again, the most important part of your message is what you do with your message. So take it past the bio. And this is where you want to start. You want to be a broken record. The way you know you're doing it right is if you're speaking to that part, the Venn diagram, but particularly the piece people will pay you for, and you're speaking to it over and over and over again. And you almost feel like, oh my gosh, I must be annoying because I talk about this so much. I must be a freaking broken record. Like, I'm so sick of hearing myself talk about this. That's how you know you're doing it right. Frankly, I have to remember, everyone does not see all my content. Everyone does not see every live stream. Everyone does not see every post I put out. We put out a lot of content because I feel like, oh my gosh, I talk about this all the time. It's so obvious what I do that people must be sick of hearing that, but that's how you know you're doing it right. Think about any of you who watch, I know we don't have commercials on TV the same way we used to, but if you think about commercials you watch, right? The Geico commercial. If I say Geico, you can probably think of their tagline. And it's the same one in every single commercial. You probably have seen them show literally the same commercial over and over again on your favorite TV show. That's not an accident. They have a ton of money to put into, I used to work in advertising. A lot of money gets spent on advertising. Why do they do that? Because repetition is literally how our brains rewire and how we learn things and how we create new memories, right? This is actually a pretty neurological thing, right? We need to hear things over and over and over again for them to click. That's how you rewire your brain. You want to rewire your brain, put in, something new over and over again enough until it becomes stronger, and the other pathway in your brain becomes weaker. You'll create a new neural pathway. The same is really true for advertising and marketing. It's a repetition game. And so that's how you know you're doing it right. And I say that from the neurological space here, and just to help you see it outside of our business, go think about any big company. I use Coca-Cola all the time as an example, even though it's probably horrible for all of us. I don't drink Coke, but I just think it's such a big company. If you think about Apple products, or if you think about, I'm trying to think of some really like universal products, but if you think about any of those, Trico is just so easy. 15 minutes could save you, is it like $15, 15% or more, something like that. If you think about any of those, it's like you can almost pull up, even if you don't pay attention, you can almost pull up their messaging and their tagline, because they repeat it over and over again, even though they, show it to you in new and different ways, which is what we're talking about here with, you can talk about it in new and different ways, but they are telling you the same thing over and over and over again until it's in your brain. That's really the goal with your message. And so I really want to invite you to think about that and to think, am I being a broken record? Am I almost sick of hearing myself talk about this? That's when you know you're doing it right. Am I being like those other companies? Am I really thinking about this, that this is advertising, this is marketing? And really think about this, like, this is how humans learn. This is how I always say marketing is very powerful. We have to be very responsible as marketers and business owners, right? Because this is how it's not just marketing, right? This is how change is made in the world, right? We have to say things enough times. So it's actually quite a powerful thing. I think as business owners, we have such a responsibility. I know if you're here, you're heart-centered and you have integrity, that's not something you have to worry about. But I think seeing that is just a reminder as how important that repetition is. Jonathan says, hi, nice to have you here. Let me know if you have any questions on Instagram, and just popping over here to see if there are any questions. Alexander says, this is true, be a broken record. Really and truly be a broken record. And I say that because this is something I have to be reminded of as well, because it can start to feel a little uncomfortable when I've been doing my work now. It's been 5.5 or I've been in business for a hot second. I've been saying the same message for a long time. I've been talking about the same stuff for a long time. I've been talking about the same topics in different ways for a long time. You can start to feel like, wait, am I like not being creative enough? I'm a creative minded person. It can feel a little funny because we aren't Coca-Cola, we aren't Geico, right? We're not hiring an advertising company. We're so close, we're so aware of our marketing and our messaging that's going out there, because most of us are creating our own content and we're aware of what we're saying over and over again. So it can feel a little funny and like, well, I must be doing something wrong. And I really want to remind you that is doing it right. That's how you know you're doing it right. And it's also very normal if you're like, wait, but is this really what everyone else does? Absolutely, that is the goal. So that's what I really want to invite you to think about after you have the messaging and those pieces we talked about. You're not done yet. Don't spend all this time and energy getting clear on your message just to have a perfect I help statement that sits on your bio somewhere. Infuse this and be a broken record with it, because that's where it speaks to your people. That's where people pick up what you're putting down. That's how your message really helps you book clients and make money. All right, I've been talking a lot. I've got one more piece here that feels very important, because I said we're going to talk through the clarity, mindset, strategy, and action of this. And this is a lot of the strategy and action piece here, right? This is the action part to it. But I do want to speak to the mindset component of your message really quickly. I think I said that I had 3 easy messaging lessons, and I feel like this has been more like 10. So I lied in my title accidentally. I didn't realize how much we had to share here. So I hope this is really helpful for you. And oh, hey, Jenna, nice to see you. If you all have questions on Instagram as well, I'm not ignoring you just because I'm looking at Facebook. So feel free to throw them at me. But we will talk messaging, mindset for the other M for one moment here. I think the last piece, the last piece I will offer you here with your message, and really how the words in your message are going to connect with your audience and help you sell more. And what is just so important that I find we can forget about when we are in that, when I think about like wanting to slink under the table because I didn't know my message, or I think a lot of times when we're looking at copy or content, that was my cord. Apology, y'all, for the noise. But when we're looking at things like our content and our messaging and our copy and words, I think we can get so wordsmithy and flowery and get so focused on the words that we forget the really core component. Yes, the Venn diagram, that trifecta we talked about earlier, but on a mindset front, what I think is so important is owning your message from an internal place and really, I think of this almost like walking your talk. So yes, it should be something you're passionate about. Yes, we want this to be something that you could be the best in the world at, but really living your message. And I think that's tied into owning your message. So there's kind of two pieces. This probably just be its own live stream. So maybe we'll have to talk about this more, but just to kind of put a button on this here from the mindset part is really thinking about, okay, with my message, am I walking my talk? I know if you're here, you probably are, but it's sometimes we get far away from our work. This does not mean, I have a client who's a designer, and sometimes as a designer, you have to outsource design. This does not mean as a designer, you have to design all the time for yourself. I don't mean it in that way, but what you're teaching, what you're talking about in your messaging, is that something you believe in and you're living those components in your life day to day? Or are these just really nice sounding words that you're putting on a page and like manipulating and being a creative writer? I talk about this a lot with ideal clients, right? We don't want our ideal client avatar to be a creative writing project. We also don't want your message to be a creative writing project. We want this to be really rooted in you and your work and what you actually do and believe in. Right? That's how your message is going to have weight. So when you are taking that Venn diagram, when you are taking those three pieces, they're really rooted in they're just grounded in a different way. People can feel the difference. I know if you're watching, like you all know, you like scrolled and you've seen stuff online where it's like, I don't get it. This is written really well. This makes sense, but like, something feels weird. I don't believe it. I don't buy it. I like my spidey senses are up, right? We're intuitive human beings. Most of us can sense when something's off. And sometimes that's just because it's not because people are trying to lie or be shady. Or I really genuinely think most people in our online space in 2021 are coming from a good place and are doing the best they can and are not liars. I think, of course, in any world and in any space, there are outliers where that's true. But I really think for the most part, you can trust and believe like the people you see. But I think when you're feeling that, like, wait, something feels not like, this feels weird. I don't buy this. I don't believe this. I think a lot of times what you're sensing is it's someone who isn't really embodying, isn't really, their message really isn't congruent to what they actually believe. It's not really grounded in what they're actually doing and them walking their talk. And I think that piece, they might believe it. You know what I mean? Like a lot of times it's because they've gotten really great words. This is why sometimes I think hiring copywriter, there is a time for that. I think that can be like we have someone who supports me with the podcasts and writing the show notes. Like there is a time where that can be really beneficial. But I think sometimes, especially when we're trying to get to the core of our message, we have to be mindful because sometimes it's someone else's message and someone else's words, and it misses that part that really helps us anchor in, and people just can tell the difference. Let me know if you know what I'm talking about. Mary says hearts and yes. And so I think just seeing that again, it's not because I really genuinely think most people are doing the best they know how and can in business online. And most people are not trying to come from a gross place, but we feel the difference. And so I think from a mindset embodiment place, that's just something I would think about with your message. Is this actually what I believe? Is this actually true? Is this actually the stuff I am doing, right? I talk about clarity, mindset, strategy, and action because that's literally what I have been doing from day one, even before I had a business. Like that's what I was doing when I was doing general life coaching. Like that's how I live my life, right? That framework is there for a reason. It's literally how I've created success in every part. I said literally a lot here. Apparently I like that word, but and I really want you to know I'm serious here. But when I talk about building, growing, and scaling a business, that's because that's what I'm doing behind the scenes. And that's what I'm supporting clients with all day, every day, right? So I think just seeing those pieces there, I think the messaging that tends to connect the most with people is just rooted in that authenticity. And again, not because someone isn't lying, but more like, am I walking my talk? When I talk about the mindset piece, it's because that's what I do when I tell a client, I think you should do some mindset work. It's a lot easier for me to say that and put that into my messaging because I'm doing that every damn day myself. Like we don't miss a day over here. So I think you understand what I'm saying here. And then with that, the other part to the mindset piece of your message that really is what's going to help take the strategy component we talked about and the action component we talked about and that clarity component we talked about with your message, that's going to give it that rocket fuel, that lighter fluid, whatever we want to say, that's really going to help light it on fire, is then because if you're coming from this place where it is grounded in that truth and that authenticity, it's really then owning your message. And that's when I think about like taking up space with something and just like owning it as like, I just believe this is the way life is. Like, this is just my truth and I'm going to own it and I'm going to go take up space energetically as well as physically in the online space outside of the world. I have a training coming up. It's going to be on the podcast. It's kind of down the road because it's after I get married, but we're going to talk about things like this a lot more because I think this is just so important and something we forget about. We forget that you can have the words, but it is the embodiment. And when I say take up space, I mean literally take up space, put those words, share them everywhere, but also the energy behind it, the ownership of this is what I believe to be true. The example I often give is I can say, I'm a great coach, you guys. Or I can say, I'm a fucking excellent coach. You know, there's just a different energy, like I'm just taking up space in a different way, even though I'm sitting in the same place, I'm not that much louder, right? There's a different embodiment and ownership there. That's what I really want to invite you to think about with your message as well, because I think sometimes we almost get perfectionistic around the strategy side of things. And I love strategy. I think it's really important. Everything we talked about at the beginning of this training, it really is such a core nucleus of your business. So we're not discounting that. Same with the clarity and the action piece. But this ownership piece it's so important because again, people can feel the difference. You can tell here, right? Like you would be able to tell if I was just saying words, I'm an ex-actress, right? I could read words off of a script. I could just say them and be hollow and not believe them. And you can tell that, you can feel that. You think about any movie you watch, you know the difference when someone's acting, you're like, they're kind of overacting, right? They're taking up space. That's also not what we're talking about. That's not owning it. That tends to come from a place of insecurity. Or you can tell when someone's not really buying what they're selling you in terms of, you know, movie or show you're watching, like, well, it just takes you out of the TV show or it takes you out of the movie versus is when someone's really embodying that role. It's not about them necessarily being louder or softer. You're just like, I can't stop watching. I know I'm watching fiction here. I know this is a movie, but oh my gosh, you can be moved to tears, you can laugh, you can cry, right? That is ownership. That is belief. That is taking up space. And so that's the piece I just want to put that it feels important as the last component here with your message to really think about, because that is really what's going to take your message off the page, off the screen, and help it connect with people in a whole new way. Even if you take the beginning strategy part we talked about and you are like looking at that Venn diagram and you're looking at what compels people to buy, and you're like, I got no idea. Like, I know what Kim said, but like, this doesn't make any sense. Even if you like mumble that up, if you get this piece here with the embodiment, with the ownership, with the taking of space piece, and you bring that in with kind of a like so-so message, I promise you that's going to connect with people because we are all energy, like we feed off of that. We can tell ownership. We're intuitive. And I would really invite you to think about that the next time you're watching TV or movie and to see if you can tell that difference. Like when do you buy what someone's selling you? And I don't mean like selling you like a physical product, like literally when you're watching a TV show or a movie, when are you buying what someone is portraying? And when are you taken out of it? Because you're like, there's just something off here. That's probably because they're not owning and taking up space through the role or embodying it. Not to throw shade on any acting, that is a challenging job, but like that's the big difference there. And that's what I really want to invite you as a closing note. Alexander says, I know exactly what you're talking about. People get discouraged with their content and think it would solve everything to just hire a copywriter. 1,000%. That being said, I mean, copyism is important. I love me some copywriters, but I think exactly what you're saying here. It's sort of like, it's what we talk about, like with a message too, right? There is no one thing in anyone's business that is like the thing that if you just hire someone, they're going to solve all your business woes. And Alexander said, just wanted to tell you, I was about to go review some notes about content that sells and you happen to be live with what I need to hear. Thank you. That makes me so happy. That just makes my heart so happy. I love when that happens. And I'm also just so happy that this is what you need to hear. So thank you for sharing that with me. That just made my whole night. All right, Instagram. business besties and creative bosses. I love you all so much. Thank you for hanging with me. I know this was a long one. I hope this was helpful. If you're watching now on the replay, I hope it was helpful for you. If you have questions for me, throw them at me, drop them in the comments, tag me either way, because I tend not to always see them. Let me know how you feel about this joint live business, and we'll maybe keep it this way. I will be back next week. We do have another live before I go off for my wedding, and I'm going to be sharing about the unspoken part of my coaching framework that feels important to speak to. So I will share that with you all next week. And then this also feels important if you want support with your messaging, right? If you want some outside eyes to help pull those words out of you, to help you really get clear on that Venn diagram, on the part that's going to help you connect with your audience so they understand why they should pay you, why they should hire you, and the strategy around it, how to take that and infuse it in the rest of your strategy. So you have a sales process that works for you. And then the mindset component. So you're staying out of your own way. So you're taking up space. So you're owning your work. That's what I do. That's what I support my clients with. I'm really, really good at what I do. I've been doing this for a long time. My clients get epic results. I love my clients as well so much. I have very limited availability for the rest of the year. We're full for October, but we can probably book one more person in. Otherwise, we're looking at November or December. So if you're interested in working with me, I will drop a link, book a discovery call. I keep them very low key, very low pressure. If you're not a fit for my work, I know so many great coaches, so I will gladly refer you out to someone who I think is a fit. If you're not sure, book a call anyway, and let's get you into one of those spots before they're gone for the rest of the year. And then otherwise, I love you all. Thank you for being here. Thank you for hanging with me. And I'll be back next week before I get married with one more live stream for y'all. Now I have to figure out how to like simultaneously end these. All right. So bye. We'll end here.